Alright, subdivision in a compound meter is similar, in many ways identical to the way that you subdivide, or at least the principles are similar to the way you subdivide in a simple meter, like 2, 4, 3, 4, or 4, 4. Let's choose an easy compound meter, like 6, 8. Okay. Though 6, 8, by its nature, says there are 6 beats in the measure, and the beat is the 8th note, in practice, 6, 8 is often done in 2. Where the dotted quarter note receives the beat. Okay. Very similar to 4/4 time, or 4 notes, or the quarter note receives the beat. But this is so a little bit like 2. We would call it compound 2. There are cases actually in which 6/8 time is counted in 6. Those are actually relatively rare, and so we'll deal with those exceptions in class. But as far as a general principle, 6/8 time is done in 2, where the dotted quarter note is the unit of the beat. Okay, so let's subdivide. Okay, I'll put X's in the places where the subdivisions take place. Right there, below each note. Okay, I will count one measure and we'll be in 1, 2, T, 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 T. Easy enough. Now, you may remember from the simple meter subdivision that any time we divided the beat into, maybe we divided the quarter note into 2 8th notes, or the quarter note into 4 16th notes. Notice those were all multiples of 2, and in simple meter, that's why simple meter is simple, because the divisions of the beat, the subdivisions, are in multiples of 2. In compound meter, the subdivisions of the beat are in multiples of 3. And let me show you how. That's actually easy. If you remember how many 8th notes are inside a dotted quarter, 3. And here we get our primary subdivision in 6/8 time. Put the X's where the downbeats are, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now because this is done in 2, and because the beat is divided into 3, this is how the subdivision is going to sound. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, and I'll perform this one. T, 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 T. See how that works. We're dividing each of the beats into 3. So there are different ways that we can do this. I can, instead of dividing them exactly into the 3, I can go 2 plus 1, quarter note plus an 8th. This comprises the entire first beat. And we'll do the same over here. The X's are on the downbeats, just as before. Let's put a repeat there. Feel free, of course, to T these along with me. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and T, 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 and so on. So I'm clapping the subdivision, though we consider the dotted quarter note to get the beat. You still, if there are any 8th notes here, you still must subdivide at the smallest level of the beat. Now that's a single subdivision. Okay, one level of subdivision down. Let's talk about the double subdivision, equivalent, excuse me, to the 16th notes in simple meter. And lucky enough, in compound meter, there are also 16th notes that are the level of the double subdivision. Let's make a little more space here. Let's begin just as we did before. Okay, notice we have single subdivisions in the first measure, a quarter with an 8th and then a dotted quarter. And I have 8th notes, which is where we have the single subdivision, as we did before. And I've thrown some 16th notes in here, one on the of beat 1 and then on the and of beat 2. Here are where the downbeats are. Let me perform this one for you, and then I'll tell you how to subdivide. Well, to count into this, of course, we need to double subdivide. What we did in simple meter was 1e and 2e, and here's how we do it in compound meter. 1e and 2e and 1e and 2e and t T, T, ticky, T, ticky, T, 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 ticky, T, ticky, T. See how that works? We can go faster, we can go slower, but there should always be the subdivision at the lowest level. Don't fall into the trap of subdividing at the single subdivision here at the level of the 8th note and then trying to downshift into the 16th note. It will not work, especially when you're at a very fast tempo or there are more complex mechanisms at work there. That's how subdivision works in compound meter. Okay, good luck.